Good evening. I'm Terry McGill, coming to you from Portland, Oregon. This is the Who's Your Neighbor show, created several months back after some of us were discussing the effects of COVID-19 and everything related to it on people, on closeness, on connectivity, on inclusion or lack of it. And so the thought came up, why don't we put together a webcast every week that will bring people that are local or coming to Portland and doing an event that can showcase these people who may not be visible to many. And so tonight, our guest is Russell Fox. One part of his life, like who knows what percent, but he was a conductor. I'm amazed at how much he did. But the other part of his life that we want to focus on tonight is how he can offer healing to people. And so please welcome with me, Russell Fox. Russ to his friends. Hello, Russ.
You're all my friends now, so it's Russ, please. Hi, Terry. It's good to be here with you.
I'm so happy to see you again. Yeah. So, Russ, the Shen therapy that you do, and your colleague that I met, Eliel Kinder, who's also a Shen therapist. Did you train her?
I was certainly involved in training her. You bet. She came as a client. She was recommended to me. She took a training that I was very much involved with, and generally, when she needed some assistance, it was Shen that allowed her to move forward after a severe car accident and one thing or another. And yes, I was very privileged to be able to train Eliel Kinder, who lives in Vancouver, but is a member of your Dow Center of Portland.
Right across the river from us, right. Yeah. So, yeah, literally 10 minutes from my house, or 15.
Right.
It's amazing. So that was some 30 years ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, hers were the early 90s. So we are getting close to 30 years. Yes, right. Maybe 28.
So when did you begin your experience with becoming a healer?
Well, to say before I was born, I have to explain it. I was born with several spinal deformities, Terry. And over the years, my 5'11" frame has shrunk now to 5'7.5". It has not been painful, but I have a lateral scoliosis because I was born with spinal deformities. It was necessary for me to really understand what was going to keep me together. Because being a conductor is a very physical thing, and I had to have full access to my spine and my function. So learning that and realizing, as my father said, I'll support you through college, but please learn something else, because music, it just might not work out for you. Well, music worked out, but I decided to have two careers. And the second one was I decided I was going to learn massage therapy because I was going to rely on it, and I might as well take that knowledge and turn it into a profession. I ended up being fairly good at it, but I realized something else was going on. It very, very quickly, I didn't have to ask people really what was going on. Something was telling me in my hands. Now, I'm a Western person. I have no concept of subtle energies or anything like that. So it wasn't a problem. I certainly went with the flow, as we always used to say. But I had to figure this out. Well,
you're still alive.
Am I still alive? Okay, yeah. There we go. So that led to polarity therapy, which was started in the 1930s by Randolph Stone. And problem there was that it didn't make any sense in the physics department. What he said was going on couldn't go on from what I knew in physics. So that led to Reiki. And of course, Reiki was now something that I really had to go on faith, but I found it effective as an adjunct to the massage work that I was continuing to do. And I was still searching for that Western understanding. And it was in 1989, I was at a bookstore in Los Angeles that had old-fashioned shelves where the books on one side and the other kind of leaned together. I'm walking through looking for something that's going to make some sense to me, maybe. And a book literally gets pushed in my face from somebody on the other side, reinserting a book. Well, this was the first edition of The Handbook of Shen by Richard Pavick, who was an American scientist, and he had the same problem. He couldn't figure out what are these subtle energies, and so realizing that something was going on, he delved into Western physics and said, it's fields. It's not hocus pocus. There's no magic here. And if you want to call it spirituality, that's just fine. But in fact, weather systems, water systems, airflow of all sorts have the same field structure. And so maybe these emotions and subtle energies of our bodies might just be the same thing or follow the same physics laws. And after about 15 years of study and figuring things out and trial and error and clinical research, he realized absolutely they are, and they're associated with the emotional states that we feel. So, long story, just a little shorter. I said, all right, this is the man. He's finally explaining it to my very obtuse Western brain that needed some kind of facts and Western understanding of physics. And I called him up directly. I wasn't shy. After all, as a conductor, they call me a benevolent dictator anyway. So I just go ahead and called him. And we made a connection. I organized a class for him in Los Angeles, the first of many, and thus began in 1989 my journey.
So 1989 to now would be 33 years?
Absolutely. That's how it works out.
Wow. Yeah. So I notice in your bio that there's several different methodologies that you've been trained in. I didn't know about Reiki, or I knew about polarity therapy. You're also a Tao Healing Hands practitioner.
I am.
How do all of these blend together?
That's a great question, and trying to keep this as direct, but not top down in any manner. Let me do my best. What I was feeling when I was a massage therapist and had no concept of what it was ended up being something fairly simple that anyone can learn to be sensitive to, and that is a particular flow of energy. There was a sense of pressure or release, tension and release and flow that was not making sense. So the commonality is that all of these understand that there is a field portion of us, that we have our physicality, but that which we feel as emotions and how we respond to emotions, that the emotions come first, and then the brain says, oh, well, that must mean
makes up stories.
Right. Yeah, and therefore the body then jumps into motion, or your brain figures out some way to justify this pain you're now re-experiencing. So all of those all of those practices understand that there is a flow of energy that is the basic essence of the person. That's what arrived to help create the structure known as a baby, a fetus, and then a birth being. And here we are. We are a vehicle for this spirit, if you will, this soul, this energy field. And all of the therapies understand there is an energy field that must be dealt with. The idea of polarity therapy, you could look at it as positive, negative. You could look at it as yin and yang,
Right.
up, down, black, white, the opposition in all things, that there is a balance to everything. So that's the commonality. In theory and actual practice, they're all very different. But that understanding that there is something that we as Westerners had not yet figured out, and that was the very basis for ancient wisdom and indigenous cultures, that they had not lost sight of, and that we, in our grand intelligence, had written off as fairy tales or wives' tales, when in fact, it's the very basis of who we are.
Yeah, there's a reason to me that so many techniques, whatever you want to call them, methods, have survived amongst what I used to think of as ignorant farm people.
Yeah.
But, they're smart enough to not continue using something if it doesn't work.
Yeah. The earliest forms of body energy healing actually are inscribed on hieroglyphics and recorded as early as 2900 BC. And that is not physicians. Physicians were one category in ancient Egypt, but there were these energy healers, where the ankh, that staff that then had the rounded top and then a cross beam of arms. In actual fact, that is it's like a Tao calligraphy, in that it's the simplified version of the human energy field. And that was 2900 BC. And people would be able to be healed if they had this knowledge, and it was a very specialized knowledge. Our goal is to teach everyone who and what they are, and how it has even on a family basis, a first aid effect in assisting in all sorts of life situations, not just emotional healing, but in stimulating the healing process.
So that brings up something that you mentioned when we were speaking before the show started. You're in Portland, Oregon right now, laying the groundwork, putting the glue together for a Shen, workshop in May?
Yes, it is. Now, because of COVID, there have not been any Shen personal empowerment and training workshops. So we've had to be very careful. And now, as things are being loosened up and mandates are being relaxed, in the first week of May, we are giving a week-long intensive. This is how Shen is normally taught these days, and that is a full week where both newbies, as we say, people who are just coming in because they're interested. Something rings true about what it is that they hear, and they want to learn more. And they understand that in learning, they're going to have to explore their own inner work. And maybe some of those difficult emotional impacts that they realize have been limiting their careers, their relationships, their financial wealth, and whatever it might be, that they know that they just have baggage that they've been holding on to. So and they would love the opportunity to do something about it. So learning the technique and doing your own work is how the WAP is organized, where people both give and receive.
You're going to do this the first week in May?
Say again?
You're going to do this the first week in May?
It is the first week in May, and it is a residential workshop, meaning we are going to the Alton Collins Retreat Center in Eagle Crest, or is it Eagle Creek?
Probably Creek.
It's Eagle Creek. And
we have 100 Eagle Creeks or Rock Creeks in Oregon.
Well, this is in Eagle Creek, Oregon, and we're pleased to be there, and they are welcoming us.
So let me ask Michelle, our producer, to put contact information up for you in case people are interested.
That would be wonderful.
So we have your website, and then also where they can either voicemail or text you.
Yes, absolutely. Be thrilled to talk with anyone concerning the work of Shen therapy. Absolutely. And
So
of course, the workshop participation.
so during this week, um, that's going to immerse. This is immersion. Um,
This is total immersion. This
that's
is
a
absolutely.
wonderful way to learn because everything else, and being residential, everything else is out of the way.
Well, that's the goal. If you're going to do your own internal work, if we are sincere, and we are usually so concerned with what we did in the past, and that we're worried, and they're worried about what the future might hold and the consequences. And so we're hardly ever right here, now, in the present. Eckhart Tolle wrote that book, The Power of Now. Well, part of the power of now is dealing with what he calls our pain body. Well, this week-long total immersion workshop is designed specifically. So yes, you'll learn some of the techniques, but it's designed so you can do your own internal work, assisted by the techniques of Shen and under the guidance of certified personnel, myself and my assistant, Eliel Kinder.
So I've had 3, maybe 4 sessions, Shen therapy sessions with Eliel.
Yes.
And I remember coming away after the second one going, I don't know what happened, but I am different. And I've had 700 kinds of this and that and the other over my short life. And every time there's a difference, and I can't always put my hand on it or my head on it because it's so subtle. What is it that is occurring that's not on the conscious level?
Most of us, what we call our personality, it ends up being a whole series of well-worn defense mechanisms that have long outlived their usefulness for us. We're all guarding. Well, the work of Shen allows those difficult emotions, the uncomfortable ones, to come forward and to be finally fully experienced. And it's that allowance that allows them to dissipate. So once that happens, your thinking, your rationale, how you operate with certain people that used to bug you, the very material that caused you to have that reaction to that situation or that person, that's not there any longer. And you will find new options and new words coming out of your mouth that, whoa, I just went through that difficult situation. Somehow that was different. Well, it's because you have allowed yourself to remove of the basic filters that you used to call your worldview or your personality. So it can be subtle, but that subtlety is quite dramatic when you realize that you're not having the personal angst that you used to carry into certain situations.
You mentioned that emotions come up. My experience has been that I didn't experience any big emotional stuff going on. It was just I kind of went into a reverie, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, did I take a nap there? Then I was so different afterwards. It was like, and most of the time I can't put a hand on it, a mind on it. It would be a better word. I don't really know what it is, but I feel so much better.
Well, our whole goal was to get you into your body and out of your mind. So that's that number one. You really being able to analyze it is not, analyzing and understanding is the booby prize. Feeling it and being totally aware and listening with your entire being, not just your critical mind, that's a whole new experience for most people. And you can't put your hand on it. Now, when I say emotions will come forward, sometimes they are very strong, and people get off the table understanding, I remember when, and then you will get the whole details, or it can come up as metaphoric images. And a grand number of times, it's like you, Terry, where, oh my, I am not tense anymore. There is a relaxation. My shoulders are down where they're supposed to be. My walking, my gait is a little bit different. My ability to think clearly has really amped up. Yet no actual emotion came forward for you. That's fine. Had it been necessary for you to quote unquote understand it, absolutely you would have remembered it. And remember, you've only had 3. Let's work on some other things, Terry.
So you're also a Tao Healing Hands practitioner.
Yes, I am.
Shen therapy, in my experience, is partly hands near, but not on, and partly hands on. And Tao Healing Hands is no touch unless there's permission. How does that blend for you?
Very easily and in multiple ways. For those of you who are Tao Hands healers, you understand that it's wonderful blessing other people. But when I'm with somebody and they have come for a Shen session, it's not my province and ability to just give them a blessing without having their permission first. But I always have my own permission. So I give a Tao Hands blessing to myself so that I can have, as appropriate, the best flow between my hands, that I can be as sensitive as I possibly can be and aware of the physiological subtle changes that are going on as they are doing their internal processing. Whether they remember it or not, the great deal of processing is going on. So I ask a Tao Hands blessing for myself to do the best work possible. And it has been, for me, a phenomenal aid. When I have received, when I felt a person has been with me for a while and I mention Tao Hands healing, I ask them if it would be appropriate and I have their permission. Then I will give both myself and them a blessing that they would be able to receive and move forward as appropriate.
Just a note for our viewers, the area where Russ is using a computer has intermittent low bandwidth. So if you see his face freeze and his words continue, or there's some interruption, that's simply the way the internet works sometimes. The good news is, we're getting the full message, Russ, so that you will know. I really appreciate your putting together for me the hands-off versus hands-on, the different therapies, modalities might be another word for it. I'm just enchanted. Candidly, when Aliel offered me the first session, it was like, I've done so much, like 15 different kinds of things, and I'm not that interested. But there was something that said, just do it. Don't say no. And the first session was there was not that much that I was aware of. But the second and sense, like, wow.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you have to remove the lid of the can before you can get to the insides, or you have to, we call, you have to untwist the ends of the sausage before you can squeeze out the meat.
There you go. So with the training, the 8 days, I don't want to guess, but I'm hoping that the participants are going to receive some Shen therapy.
They will both receive and give 20 Shen sessions.
20?
They will give and receive 20 within the 7 therapeutic days of the workshop, yes.
Wow, what a huge benefit.
Yes.
So, our Michelle, what's the word? Producer, right? She has put the way to contact you back up there again. Actually, no. That's over in the chat room. This is the title: Biofield Therapeutics for Physio Emotional Recovery. And I love the last word, empowerment. Man,
Yes,
that takes it
the
to
workshop itself. The
that.
workshop itself is Shen Personal Empowerment and Training Workshop.
But the
That's what we
empowerment
do.
part in your logo there, that just takes it to a whole nother dimension. When I
Yeah,
saw that, it's like, oh, I really like that.
great, great, Terry. Yeah.
So, anything that you would like to share with us as we're winding down our short time together?
Uh, Probably too many things that I would love to share, but the basic one is this: I'm just an individual to
So, you
share
have almost completely muted out.
what's
And
important.
okay, now, would you say that all over again?
I appreciate the opportunity to have shared what has been meaningful to me my entire life, and the last 30 years has given focus to my career and my ability to work with people. So thank you for having me here. I look forward to being back here in the Pacific Northwest at the beginning of May to teach.
Russ, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Terry.
So, this has been another edition of Who's Your Neighbor? And I am so thankful personally to keep experiencing people and systems and biofields that I had no idea existed, and people who are making such a huge difference in the world. So, the first week in May, I heard a rumor that there's one Shen practitioner who may fly in from England or the Isle of Guernsey, which is right off the coast, to be in this workshop. So you don't have to live in the Portland metro area, although that would make the transportation costs less. So if you're at all interested, if you have been running into roadblocks with the way that your life works or doesn't, then I invite you to look over into the chat and connect with Russ. Have a conversation. Um, yeah. And then please join us next week on Who's Your Neighbor for another surprise. And until then, who is your neighbor?